Hello, in this video John's going to be showing you how to plant a tree in your garden. Welcome to John Horsey Horticulture. On this channel we're hoping to help you develop your gardening skills, whether you're new to gardening, looking for advice on propagation techniques, growing vegetables, a bit of pest control and much more, or whether you're a seasoned horty who could always use some extra tips and advice. If you like learning those things, do have a look around our channel. If you like what you see, push subscribe. That means you're following us, there's no extra charge. And push the all-important notification bell. That lets you know every time we upload a new video.
Hello, it's good to be back again. It's been a long time since we've been doing videos, but of course the weather's been so dry and so difficult. Anyway, now fortunately we've had some rain, it seems to have gone in, done some good, and we can get on with things again. I've not been wasting my time though. While I've been so hot and dry, I'm actually getting all my lectures, all my talks I've done over the years online. So eventually you'll be able to see all those, so just keep an eye open for that. Anyway, today we're going to plant a tree. Always exciting planting a tree, it's always a good thing to do, isn't it? I'm going really back now to the days of old Capability Brown. He took a long time to plant trees. You know, he planted perhaps 1 million trees in his life, but he was very specific. What he did, he had a little lad with canes, and he would go all around the site where he was. Usually it was a big estate, and he wanted to make sure the trees showed up from the carriageway as you went in. And he would sort of do all these viewpoints, and then he'd say exactly where it wanted to be. Well, I've done the same with our little garden here, and I found the spot I want, and it's exactly where that cane is. So that's where I'm going to work to. Now, of course, the thing is, when you've got the cane like this, when I dig the hole out for the tree, I'm going to lose the exact spot, and it's quite important that I don't. So to overcome that, I've got what we call a planting stick or a planting plank, which is very useful, which I'll show you why. This is it. It's a piece of wood with a notch cut there, a notch cut there, and a notch cut there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay that down so that notch is where the cane is, taking care not to get that cane in my eye. And there we've got the position fixed in that respect. Then a couple of smaller canes, bear with me, a couple of smaller canes will go in there, in that notch, and then in that notch. Yeah. And now I can take this one away. I can take that one, put it to one side, and I'll use that of course later on. You can see what I'm going to do. I'm going to put that back eventually, and I'll make sure the tree's in there. So it's quite a useful way of doing it. So now I know the sort of circle I can dig. The tree hasn't got a massive root, but I'm now going to get the spade and dig the hole. It's a bit stony, this soil, but start off in the middle where we need to be, and the turf's coming up quite nicely. You do need to remember when you do this to make sure that the subsoil, if there is any, is very apart from the rest. So that's why I've got 2 pieces of plastic here, although I've got quite a decent depth of topsoil. I may not get down to the subsoil. Anyway, let's get this off and see what's underneath. You can see what I'm doing now though is I'm coming further out. I've taken the central core out. It's still nowhere big enough for the roots we've got, so I'm taking more around the side here, and that's coming out now. I don't think I'm going to have any subsoil to worry about, so just keep the turfs separate just in case I want them for another purpose. Those canes are very useful now to show me exactly where to go. You see I've made the hole quite a lot wider. I'm not going down too deep, and there's reasoning for that, because back in the old days they always said go right down deep, put loads of organic matter at the bottom of the plant, and that'll keep it going. Of course, what they've realised now is that if you put lots of organic matter at the bottom of the planting pit, then that will slowly decompose and get lost. So then the level of the tree gradually sinks, and the tree ends up being too deep in the hole. So now we tend to go outwards, so that the plant, when it goes in, will have a nice firm base to rest on, and the roots will have lots of growth around the sides into which to grow. Now, before I do any further, I want to just get put the plant over the hole to see how big it's going to be. So, but looking at it here are the roots. you see some of these when it came up. See that one? What's happened there is, as I dug it out, it obviously got all the epidermis got stripped off. So that's never going to be any good. So what I'm going to do is just nick it back to below, out above there. And that has the same effect as actually as pruning a plant. You'll find that the new roots, in the middle of that lot there, there's a little thing called the steel. And from that, new roots emerge. And so from there will be new shoots coming. So there's some nice new growth on that one. I'm not going to need to do anything with that one. That's lovely, isn't it? Most of the others look all right. That might be a bit loose there. I'll just take that one off and trim that off and trim that off. And that one there can be trimmed off. A bit tidy there, so let's get that one. So that's tidied up the root, and that'll help it to grow a lot better. This is the beauty of the planting stick, because can you see from there, obviously I've got to go down a bit deeper. I've got plenty of sideways for it to grow. I just want to get a little bit deeper and underneath there. So back to the digging. I've actually got down to the subsoil here. You see it's just starting to change colour, and you're getting a lot more stones in it. So I'm hoping that the plant, when I put it back in there, will sit on that, which will give it a nice firm base. Roots will soon make its way down into it looking for moisture. Anyway, so let's see how we go. We'll get the measure back up again. There we are, and we'll get the tree in its place. This is the other beauty of this thing, you see, because now the level, we know that where the end of the trunk and the beginning of the root is actually level with the soil, which is what you want. So there we are, that's perfect. So now I've got the tree in the right place, I know the level's right. But what I want to do now is put some good compost around those fine roots there. So, okay, well you can see I've had to reduce the tree a bit. It was too big anyway, to be honest. You need to have some sort of ratio between the roots and the shoots, and that had got far too big. So that's brought that down considerably, and it's now looking for more balance, shall we say. So here we are. It's actually standing up on its own now. But what I'm going to put around there is my wonderful mixture of it's basically homemade compost, excuse me, Juna, Barney, sorry, and it's nice and moist. It's got plenty of compost in it. It's got lots of grit as well. I love grit. I think grit's very important, and that's going to go all around the roots like that. It's got lots of nutrients, of course, being from the compost heap. There we are. So when we come to staking trees, some people like an upright stake. If you put it in now, you see, you could make sure it didn't go too much through the roots. Try and get as close as possible, and that's how it would hold in. I'm not using upright stakes. I don't like them very much, and I'll show you what I do use in a moment or two. But at the moment I'm going to get this compost all around the roots, make sure they're nice and moist, because if the roots dry out, they'll die and they won't take up nutrients and water. And to actually help it a little bit more, I never mind putting too much water on in this sort of situation. So here's more water going around to ensure that the whole thing is nice and moist, both sides. There we are. So that'll keep it going nicely. Okay, right, so here we are. It's nicely watered. It's standing on its own, but we'll give it a support in a moment or two. Now we just need to put the soil back around it. Now, if you had got down to the subsoil, the reason why I say keep it separate is that if that was the case, that topsoil would have gone on last. In other words, all this good subsoil would have gone around the roots, and the subsoil, which is pretty infertile, often very claggy, clay-like, if that was on the top, nothing would grow on it, and that is what the tree wants. It doesn't want any competition, doesn't want any grass whatsoever. So, but see, it doesn't really matter in this case. I've got plenty of nice fertile soil here, which I'm going to put back around the roots, and that'll keep it going nicely. The roots are spread out, they're actually coming all around the way here, so that's quite nice. What I am going to do now though is I've got to get rid of all these turfs. So they're going to go back upside down in there, where they'll rot down slowly, So they can go upside down where they'll actually provide food for the plant over the years, and they'll fill the hole up for us again nicely. So, but definitely upside down because I don't want any grass growing. I should probably put some sort of a mulch to prevent anything growing on there. And I'm going to just gently firm it in. Don't stamp it down, but just gently firm it down to hold it in. Holding the tree up nicely as well now. Right, so now we come to staking. You'll recall earlier on we said some people would put the post like that so it was upright and hold it that way. That works. If you'd grown a tree, if you'd bought a tree, for example, that you want to show the bark from, something like a silver birch or a Prunus cerula, something like that with a lovely bark, it might have a very long trunk and you might need something similar to this to hold it. But in this case, I'm going to use a short diagonal stake. Now this one will come, it will actually be holding the tree somewhere down there, about 6 inches off the ground. And there's the logic behind that is, of course, it won't damage the roots as it goes in because it's going at an angle. And also, by holding the tree there, it will encourage the top of the tree, because the bottom is firm, it'll be encouraging the top to flex in the wind, and it'll develop the woody tissue that it needs to strengthen itself, and it'll be self-supporting much quicker. So that's what we're going to do. I should say at this stage that now many municipal places would, before they put the tree in, they would have put a pipe underneath with holes in it, and the idea being that that pipe, a bit of drainage pipe really, but working the other way around, because the pipe would just come out of the ground. You've probably seen it in towns and places, and it means they can just water that by filling up that pipe, and gradually the water will seep out through the holes in the pipe to the roots of the tree and keep it watered. I'm not worrying about that here because we're quite close to the house, and it's quite a moist spot anyway, and if need be I'll keep it watered regardless. Now the other thing that you'll find now happens is that a lot of the trees in towns and you don't see the stakes. The root comes in a neat root ball, and that root ball is then pegged into the ground, and you don't see anything at all, and of course you don't need to worry about getting it out later on. It just stays there forevermore. So the tree, well, forevermore. But in this case I'm just going to show you how to put a little side prop in, going at an angle. It should go into the prevailing wind, which is behind me, southwest. So it's at an angle like that. I'm lowering it just a little bit out. There we are, that's nice and secure. Now, the next thing is to find a tree tie. When the tree ties come, they're a bit like this. It's a piece of plastic and a little buffer. And the idea is that you get this piece of plastic around the tree, like that. You then put it through the buffer. That's to stop the tree rubbing against the stake. Like that, that's it. And then you bring that around there and hold it with a little tack, which I'll put in a moment. But that's how it should be. It's very important to make sure that they don't rub. There we are. So that's going to go through that hole, I need to actually drill in there in a minute because it's too firm for me to tack it in. But I think you can see there how it's going to hold it, how it's going to stop it rubbing. Job done. Oh, I'll of course have to come along with a saw and just tidy that off of there. Okay, good watering. Make sure it's not having any competition at all. Don't let grass grow on that. I will probably put a mulch or something there to stop anything growing, and keep an eye on it. I mean, this one's all the loquat, of course, is not completely hardy, but I've seen quite a lot growing locally, so I'm happy to risk it. We're quite sheltered here, and if it comes up, it has lovely white flowers, which are beautiful, and if you're really lucky, you'll get the fruit, which is delicious. So there you are, tree planted.
Well, as always, in the description below our videos, I do put links to the tools and accessories we use, if that makes it easier for you if you're about to carry out these jobs. In the meantime, thanks so much for joining us here in Somerset. We've really, really enjoyed having you. Until next time.